Thank you for joining us today for the Driving Sales webinar with Automate, the auto dealer's 5-step guide to team building. My name is Brinley Jansen. I'm the event manager for Driving Sales, and I will be your moderator for today's session. Just a couple quick housekeeping items. We are using the GoToWebinar as the platform today. Please feel free to ask questions throughout the presentation, and we will answer those towards the end during our Q&A session. When you logged in, there was a control panel that came over your computer. This will be the way you ask questions or make comments in the tab titled Questions, or you can send them directly to me via chat. As the moderator, I will be asking the questions. Our speaker today is Mike Esposito. Mike is the president and CEO of Automate. He has been with Automate Dealership Systems since 1999 and is responsible for the overall direction of the company. His many years of automotive experience and knowledge of the inner workings of dealerships, coupled with his deep technical background, have provided Mike with a unique perspective of what dealers really need from a dealership management system and how the system should be designed to deliver it. Well, without further ado, I will turn it over to you, Mike.
Thanks, Lindy. Good afternoon. What we're going to be talking about today is team building, okay? And agenda, we're going to talk a little bit about the importance of building a strong team and how to do that. Steps to form a cross-functional team, and might be a term that you hadn't heard before. And then really talking about the reward systems that are in dealerships. Okay? So first step is you need to define and identify your organizational goals. So one of the things that I like to talk about is a thing called servant leadership. And what servant leadership is that the leaders of a company really serve the people. Okay, they work for the people versus the people working for them. And part of that servant leadership, there are two parts. One is strategic in the sense of that the leader needs to set the vision of where the company is going. And the other is implementation. And implementation tends to be more of the I work as the leader work for my people. So it's not that my people go off and actually determine where we're going. That's the leader's job. But once that's determined, then the leader steps back and says, okay, team, how do you need me to help you to get there? Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about that. So the first question I would ask everybody is, do you have goals for your team? Now, when I talk about team, I'm talking about the dealership in general. There are also obviously teams within the dealership. Now, one of the things, and as you had heard, one of the things I had run a Chevy store for about 6 years, a very large store, 300 car a month kind of thing, 35 technicians, that type of thing. And what I always felt was that even though we talked about a sales team, it really wasn't a sales team. We had 24 salespeople, and they were all individuals. And in most cases in the dealership, pretty much everybody is their own little silo. And I think that dealers foster that with pay plans, but also with telling a salesperson or service writer, what have you, that it's your business. You can develop this business by calling on people and getting more business in. So, it's really kind of, we are working against ourselves when we're trying to set up a team, yet we have people who are silos. So, when you're talking about teams and you want to set up a goal for a team, the goal's got to be a little bit more than, we need to make a lot of money or we need to make a lot of gross. Okay, so when you talk about goals and defining a goal, there's a great, and this is probably easily 20, 30 years old, but Zig Ziglar, I think a lot of people know who Zig is. He was probably one of the most famous salesman and sales trainer. He did a seminar on goal setting. And one of the things that he talked about is that for a goal, it has to be measurable. It has to have a time frame tied to it. You have to write it down, and you have to be specific about what it is. So and one of the things that he talked about as an example was losing weight. If I'm going to, let's say I'm overweight and I want to lose 30 pounds, you could say, well, I want to lose 30 pounds, and then just kind of go about it, trying to do it. But the way to do it of setting that goal is, I want to lose 30 pounds by December 31st. Today is September 21st. What I want to do is I want to break it down and say how many pounds I want to lose per month, and then put a plan together that says I'm going to cut my calorie intake, I'm going to walk every other day and what have you, and every month track it to see where you are. Okay, so it's the setting of the goal and also the measuring of the goal. Okay, so we'll talk a little bit about that. So the great philosopher Yogi Berra once said, if you don't know where you're going, you might wind up somewhere else. So really what Yogi was talking about is really a plan. And that would be, let's say, a 5-year plan. Now, if you say to a dealership, hey, you got to have a 5-year plan, most people in a dealership will say, we can't plan next month, no less 5 years. How do you do a 5-year plan? Well, a 5-year plan really is what I would call a vision. Where do you want to be in 5 years? I mean, this can be even from a personal standpoint. You could have your own 5-year plan. If you're a new salesman or a new sales manager, well, in 5 years, I want to be the general manager. Or in 5 years, I want to be a dealer, or what have you. Okay, so a 5-year plan really is the vision of where you want to be. Kind of, what do you want to be when you grow up? Okay, so if I ask you, what do you want to be when you grow up from a dealership perspective, you might say, within 5 years, we will be the #1 Chevy dealer in the Boston zone. Or you might say, we're going to be the #1 dealer in customer satisfaction, or we're going to be a best place to work. Okay? Set the goal and say, all right, so that's the vision, that's where we're going to go. So the question is, that is what you use to drive all the plans to get you to that goal. So, for instance, the vision being will drive all the plans. But if you were again looking at the goal is to lose 50 pounds. That's my vision. What are the steps that I'm going to need to take to create that or reach that goal? Okay, so vision is all about what do I want to be in the future. Okay. The mission is how you get there and then the plan. So let's just talk about creating a mission statement. So if we're going to create a mission statement, okay, let me just give you a couple of examples of mission statements. Okay, Southwest mission statement, which I love. I'm a fanatic Southwest fan. I'll fly Southwest even if it costs me more money than Delta or American Airlines, just because Southwest is just they're just fabulous. But their mission statement is dedication to the highest quality of customer service delivered with a sense of warmth, friendliness, individual pride, and company spirit. Another one might be Intel. Intel's mission is utilize the power of Moore's Law to bring smart connected devices to every person on Earth. And for those of you who don't know what Moore's Law is Gordon Moore was the founder of Fairchild Semiconductor and also Intel. And he came up with postulated that the power of the processor will double every 2 years. Now, that was back in 1960, and he was actually wrong. It's doubled every 18 months since 1960. So that was another one might be Amazon. So we've heard a lot about Amazon. Amazon's mission is to be Earth's most customer-centric company where customers can find and discover anything they might want to buy online and endeavors to offer its customers the lowest possible prices. One of the interesting things with the mission and those mission statements, nowhere does it talk about profitability. Nowhere does it say we want to, and oh, by the way, we're going to be very profitable. Okay, this talks about they talk about service. It's what you're about. Your mission is about what you're about. So if you want to create a mission statement, and I mean, we could spend an entire hour or two just talking about developing the mission statement, but to give you an idea, it really comes from your people. You sit down, the way we've done our mission statement is to sit down and talk to our people, all of our people, not just the managers, and get a sense of what we're about, okay, after we've done the vision of where we want to be when we grow up. And so that everybody understands the mission of the company. We've developed it, everybody understands it, and then on top of that, we also develop our core values. Okay? And the core values are what we live and die by in the company. Okay, it's what we use to make our decisions every day. And you might say, Mike, well, what does this hell have to do with team building? Well, if I'm developing a team and I'm in the New York Yankees, okay, my goal is to win the World Series. My plans are I need a first baseman who hits left-handed and is left-handed or what have you. The plans are I need to get that. I need some real good relievers or what have you. Okay, so all of those, all of that comes down to getting everybody moving in the same direction, our vision, and then the mission of the organization. So, and then to build your organization correctly, you really want to foster happy employees. Okay, so that to develop happy employees goes back to what I was saying at the beginning about the servant leadership. Okay, having run a company, you go off and you really have to look at it. If you look at an organization chart, the typical organization chart is the dealer at the top. You got all your manager, sales manager, parts manager, service manager, office manager. Then below them, you might have service writers, other sales managers, and then you got all the salesmen, yada, 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 okay? But that's not the way you should run the dealership, because that's a very autocratic, top-down approach. The way you really need to run it, and the right way the team, would basically be enhanced and happy would be if it's the other way around. They're on the top and the leaders are on the bottom. Now you might say, Mike, that's crazy. Well, no, that's what's called servant leadership. Your job as a manager to your team, as the manager of the team, is to give them all the tools and everything they need to do their job and to get out of the way. So one of the big things that I always talk about is when I first started in the dealership, one of the dogmas in the dealership was it's not what you expect, it's what you inspect. Okay, well, to me, that's wrong. Okay, if I have the right people and I have happy employees and I'm telling them this is where we need to go, and we've discussed that, and I've said to them, okay, you know what your job is, tell me what you need. I will let them develop their own job skills and work on it. And will I monitor them? Yeah, certainly you do one-on-ones. We'll talk about that in a second. But I'm not, when I tell somebody, hey, get me this report, I'm not 3 minutes later coming, where's the report, or on top of them all the time. Okay, because what happens is you become a micromanager, and people who are great employees do not like to be micromanaged. So anyway, but servant leadership. So we also talk about why people are happy. How do you foster happy employees? Well, the bottom line is people care about people who care about them. Okay? To have a happy employee, you might say, well, we pay really well, we have great benefits, we pay more than anybody in the area, we have the best benefits, et cetera, but I don't really have happy employees. Why is that? Well, because you have managers who yell at people, demean people, you have managers who think that they can take liberties with whatever, okay? And people look at it and say, well, but they're out for themselves. They really don't care about me. Okay? So really, to have happy employees, you have to get to a point where your employees realize that you care about them. Again, back to the servant leadership. If you care about them, for one of the things I ask dealers a lot is, you have people reporting to you, 5 people, 6 people reporting to you. I said, do you care about them? Yeah, I care about them. Well, okay, so you care about them. So the 5, 6 people, do you know their spouses' names? Have you met their spouses? Do you know their spouses, their girlfriends, whatever? Do you know their children? Do you know what their children's names are? Do you know the ages of their children? Do you know if their children are in preschool and going to college, whatever? Do you know anything about them? If you can't answer that question and say, yep, I know all I know all the people, I know their spouses, in fact, I know the kids, I've been to their, birthday party, what have you, well, you don't really care about them. Okay, and when people realize that you care about them, they will go out of their way to care about you. And caring about you would be when you're taking a business forward, or we have to make a change within the business, as opposed to digging their heels in and saying, I'm not going to make this change because I don't want to make this change and I hate it. They say, I don't particularly like doing this, but you're our leader and we believe in you and we believe you're doing it for the good of the company and for good of us. Therefore, we will do that. Okay, it's a totally different concept than what most dealerships see these days. So anyway, it really, you need to care to get happy employees. So, question I would ask everybody out there: do you think your employees are happy? And I guess we can open up the polling.
Great,
we'll
Mike. I'll give it about a second.
Okay.
Okay. 58% said yes, they think their employees are happy. 21% said no, and 21% said not sure.
Okay. So one of the interesting things when you talk about happy employees, just an aside, is when I do a lot of presentations around the country, and before I do a presentation in an area we've been talking about employees or great companies or team building, what have you, I always check and look at the local business papers that they'll have best place to work or top workplace, whatever. And it always amazes me that most dealerships are not. Now, I'm not talking about the Automotive News best dealership to work for. I'm talking about in your local area, the best place to work. Okay, and it's amazing to me that most dealerships do not even show up on the radar of that. Okay, and so you might believe you have happy employees, but that vis-a-vis other companies in your area who you're competing against for employees, for customers, what have you. It'd be interesting to see how many people out there are actually best places to work. So anyway, so we're going to go off and look at define the team goals. So as I said, any team needs a goal, like let's win the Super Bowl. The other thing is, and this to me, goals are more than just the monetary goals. Well, we need to make so much gross, or we need to get so many cars over the curb. On top of that, I think goals need to be set not only for the dealership, being this is what we want to do for next month or for the quarter, but also specifically for teams. So you might have a team goal of, how much we want to, how much we want to move our CSI in sales or our SSI in service. Or you might look at how many, we want to get so many more new wholesale customers for parts, okay, within this time frame. So we want to look at not just and think of it again in a football analogy, you got the team goal, we want to win the Super Bowl, but each of the teams on, let's say I'd use the Jets, but they're so bad this year. Let's take the Patriots. On the Patriots, their offensive team has goals. This is what we need to do on the offense. How many touchdowns this is what we need to do. We want to be the number one offense in the NFL. Same thing with special teams. Each of the teams have their own goals they're working on that comes in and totals up to the overall goal of the team, which is to win the Super Bowl. So when we talk about goals, we're not just talking about the overall goal for the company, but it's also the team goals. And then within the team goals, there is individual goals for each of the, whether it be salespeople or what have you, and setting those up. Okay. So, when we talk about teams, okay, and defining and identifying the goals, one of the things that statistics show, more than 85% of all workplace failures have been attributed to lack of collaboration and or ineffective communication. So when you have a team, you really need to communicate effectively. And again, the team could be your sales team, your parts and service team, or it could be the entire dealership. So when we talk about communicating effectively, one of the questions I would ask is, remember, we're talking about goals. We want everybody to understand what the goal is. It's no good to do a dealership goal or a sales team goal. You're the sales manager and say, okay, my goal for this month is to get so many out, and not communicate it with everybody on the team so everybody knows where we're going and what we're doing. Okay, so one of the things I would suggest is, and I used to do this when I was in the dealership, is we used to have full dealership meetings once a month. This is what we said we were going to do. This is what we did. I'd meet with each of the dealership as a whole. Okay, and if it meant getting people in early, that's what we would do, or technicians or what have you. Okay, but you want to communicate. You can't over communicate, because if you don't communicate what's going on, people will start making things up, and you don't want them making things up. So the other thing is, obviously everybody has emails. I mean, I would assume most everybody in a dealership has an email. I mean, constant communications with the people, not just, fix this problem or that, but where are we with relationship to the goals that we've set, whether it be our CSI goals, SSI goals, our goals from the standpoint of new customers who want to get, that type of thing. So it's, you can't over communicate. Next is you want to identify strengths and weaknesses when you build the team. So one of the, now I spent 20 years in corporate America, and then through sheer happenstance, was running a car dealership. Okay? And when I got to the dealership, I was absolutely appalled that there was no management structure from the standpoint of coaching people. Effectively, when I stand back and look, I would stand back and look at it. The way the dealerships are set up is that people are managed by the pay plan. Salesmen, hey, basically make minimum wage. It's starting to change a little bit nowadays, but in general, the majority of all dealers, the salesmen making minimum wage. Hey, if they don't sell anything, what's it to us? It's minimum wage. If you sell something, you make some money. Same thing with service riders. They get a little bit of salary, and they get part of the gross or what have you. So there was really, the way dealerships did it was more of the pay plan will manage the person, as opposed to in corporate America where you pay in salaries. You need the managers to help coach the people by sitting down with them with one-on-ones. So we might say to a salesperson, listen, we have this cookbook. This is what you need to do that you and I have agreed that you need to make so many outbound calls, set so many appointments, do so many demo drives, what have you. Okay. And we're going to monitor that every week. And we're going to sit down once a week and see where you are versus, and it's your plan, not my plan, it's your plan, where you are versus what you said you were going to do. Okay. I'm going to hold, as a coach, whether I'm a baseball coach or a football coach, you want to hold your players accountable. You said you're going to come and be working out in the weight room. I haven't seen you in 3 weeks. Well, you're serious about this? Well, the same thing with your people. And you identify what the issues are with them as you go through the coaching. So, when you go through the one-on-one coaching, you look at, well, I see that you're not making appointments. Why, Joe, why aren't you making appointments? What's the problem? How can I help you? Again, back to what I said earlier. I'm here to help take down the barriers so that you can do the job you need to do. Okay, so it's really about identifying each person's strength and weakness, okay, and working with them and coaching them, okay, as part of the team. So one of the other things that, as you talk about strengths and weaknesses, one of the other things you got to think about, excuse me, is if you have the right person in the right seat. Now, Jim Collins wrote a book called Good to Great, and he talks about why some companies make the leap and others don't. But he says leaders of companies that go from good to great start by getting the right people on the bus, the wrong people off the bus, and the right people in the right seats. So when, think about the company is a bus and we're going to be driving towards our goal. Well, I want the right person in the right seat. I want the person, right person is got the right attitude for our company, the right work ethic, what have you. Okay. And you can have somebody that's a fabulous employee, but they're in the wrong seat. You got them in as a salesperson, and they're really not a salesperson, but they're a great employee. You really love their attitude, their energy, and what have you. Okay, and we had a situation years ago here, and we've had it a couple of times since, where we've had people who were great employees. And when I say great employees, they had the attitude that we wanted. They understood how we take care of our customers. They understood how we treated each other as teammates. Okay, except that they didn't do the job that they were given or had. They really couldn't do it for whatever the reason. And what we would do is, instead of just saying, well, get rid of the person, well, but they got the right attitude, the right person, find the right seat within the company for them, which we did. And now they're stellar employees. Not only are they great employees from their attitude, but they're doing a fantastic job with the jobs that they have. So when you go off and you coach somebody, you want to really look at those weaknesses that the person might have, and work on them with those weaknesses. And it might come to a point where you say, okay, this job really doesn't fit you. We really need to be looking at a different job for you because we really like having you as part of the company. One of the other things when you have a team and people on a team who are really energized and who are really engaged with the team and with the company, what you get this competitive advantage over everybody else in your industry, in your area, what have you. And well, how does that work, Mike? Well, there was a gentleman, Kip Tinsdale, who is with founder of the Container Store, and he wrote a great book called Uncontainable. And what he says is, if you have an engaged employee, somebody who loves coming to work, who really does a great job, yada, 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 that person is worth 3 of somebody who is a mediocre employee. So for instance, if I'm doing X amount of cars a month and the guy down the block is doing the same amount of cars a month, but I have a title clerk and that person is totally engaged and pumping out work like crazy, whereas the person down the block doing the same amount of cars, he has 3 mediocre people, because they need 3 people to do all the title work. So that's where you get your competitive advantage. If you have engaged people, you might be looking at having half the amount of people doing the work that another company would need twice the amount of people. So really, you want to have engaged employees when you talk about building your team. So last is prevent rogue employees. So what is a rogue employee? Well, in dealerships, and I've seen a lot of rogue employees in dealerships. The rogue employee, I'll give you the classic one, is the salesman who does 35 cars a month. He said, Mike, that's great. Salesman does 35 cars a month. Yeah, but that person creates so much havoc in the dealership that it's not worth the 35 cars a month. How could you say that? Well, it's really simple. They don't follow the procedures. They take liberties. And why do they do that? Well, because they know they can get away with it because they're going to be treated special because they do 35 cars a month. Now, I submit to you that if you turned around and said to them, this is what I want you to do, and they didn't do it, and you fired them, you say, Mike, I'd lose 35 cars. No, you would still pick up, and I've seen this happen, you will still pick those cars back up. It might take you a month or 2 to get those cars back. But what will happen is the morale of your dealership will go up because, hey, the boss really means when he talks about something as a core value that I want everybody here, we're honest with each other. And I find that this guy who does 35 cars isn't very honest. Well, if I let him still stay there, people are going to go, well, those core values mean nothing because look at this guy. Well, when I let that person go and say, I'm willing to let go to 35 cars because he doesn't meet our core values, the morale of the team goes up because they believe in what their leader's saying. So rogue employees can be a real problem. And I'm going to tell you that, if you have somebody who's just everybody hates, but he does a lot of gross, whether it be in parts, service, or in the front, it's costing you more money than the money he's making you, okay? So, or she's making you. So you want to prevent rogue employees. So, question, do you feel like your company has the right people in the right job?
Go ahead and give everyone about 20 seconds. Okay, do you feel like your company has the right people in the right jobs? 52% said yes, 32% said no, 16% not sure.
All right. So again, when you talk about people who aren't in the right job, if they are also not the right people, then as I said, you got to get them off the bus. If they are the right people, again, from an attitude and work ethic, then you really have to look around and figure out where you can fit them because they're the right type of people to have in your company. Okay. So some big stride team goals. So we talked about this earlier, but create a team goal for each of your teams. So one of the things, and the other thing about, as I said earlier about goals, you really want to have it so that everybody sees the goal. Everybody knows what it is. For instance, when I was running the dealership, we had a big wholesale operation, and I wanted to increase the visibility in it and increase the gross on it. So what we did is we had a big whiteboard. Every day I had my parts manager put on, this is what we want to do this month. Here, the number of parts tickets we want, the dollar per parts ticket, all the metrics. And then we would put up on the board every day exactly where we were. So everybody and every morning the team would look at it and we'd discuss it. The parts manager would discuss with his team and we'd look at what we have to do to make the goals that we want. So again, it's that giving them visibly seeing the goal, understanding what it is, what they have to do. We also you can also have some competitions within the teams, which is always good. Okay. So when we talk about competitions and such, reward system, let's just talk about reward systems. Okay. Within the reward system, one of the things, and this is a book that everybody should read. It's called Drive by Daniel Pink. Daniel Pink is a psychologist. Basically what it says is that the way that it's all about motivating people, and what the research has shown over the last 40 years is that there are two types of motivation, now that and if then. If then motivation is carrot and stick. If you do this, then you get that. If you do 10 cars this month, then you get a bonus. If you do so much gross, then you. That's an if-then, carrot and stick. Okay, versus a now that is, now that you did 10 cars, here's a bonus. You didn't expect it, but I'm giving it to you. Now that rewards work incredibly better than if-then. In fact, if-then rewards can be demotivating for people. And it's a great book to go look at and really go through, because most dealerships use if-then rewards versus now that rewards. So when we talk about individual rewards, okay, dealerships tend to, as I said earlier, have all these individuals. So you really want to also have group incentives. Maybe, again, back to that parts department, one of the things that we would do is if we hit the numbers we needed as a group, we would go out to lunch, okay, and celebrate it. You want to celebrate when you hit a goal. Okay, so we would do group incentives, that type of thing. Okay. Excuse me. The other thing is when you talk about things such as CSI, NPS, Net Promoter, increase of your KPIs, you want to use those and reward those. Okay. So one of the things that we do is when you reward people, you want to also do things that recognize them both in work and outside of work. So one of the things you might do for recognition, as I said, for outside of work is, hey, we're going to go to lunch, or we're bringing lunch in for everybody, or we're going through we're going to do something as a team. Okay. On top of that, you want to encourage socialization of the team. You know, it's very difficult when you have all of these silos. You know, one of the things that you find is that when you really know somebody, you know, that is more than, well, he's just one of the techs in the back, but you know him and you know a little bit about him and you like the person. It's easier to work with people when you understand what they're about. So we encourage socialization, and what socialization is, even outside work, you know, where you get people together, maybe at a local bar, restaurant, and just socialize something, maybe not talking about work, but everybody gets together just to kind of find out what everybody's about. So, but read the book Drive. You can actually get on YouTube and go off and just type in YouTube Daniel Pink Drive, and he does a TED Talk. 18 minutes, you'll be done. Okay, so you'll get a good idea of how it works. Okay? So question, well, do you host functions outside of work for your team? And I'm not talking about the annual holiday party that the team, you know, that your dealership might have. Really talking about on maybe a monthly basis or whatever, that as a group, you know, either dealership wide or even in, you know, sales team or parts team or whatever gets together.
Okay. Do you host functions outside of work for your team? 58% said yes, 42% no.
Okay. Well, 42% got to work on it because it really does help the entire team building. Okay. One of the things I talk about is forming cross-functional teams. A cross-functional team, excuse me, is a team that is basically cross-functional. Meaning, if I have a problem, I might want to have a parts guy, a service guy, and a sales guy all together and say, here's the problem we need to solve. And so you get everybody's viewpoint on it. And also you can get better solutions. So one of the things that, you know, you might do is, so you want to improve customer experience. One of the things I used to do at the dealership is I would have focus groups where I'd bring in customers, and this isn't a customer appreciation night. We'd bring them in and say, you're going to sit down with my service manager, parts manager, my sales manager, and my F&I director, and we're just going to ask you questions, and we need, you know, your honest opinion on things. So we would get information back from the customers as to things that they liked and they disliked about their experience at the dealership. And, you know, I tell the managers, you got to keep your ego at the door and don't get defensive, listen openly as to what's going on. So, focus groups. You want to look at them for vetting new technology solutions. So, for instance, if you're going to bring in a new CRM, for instance, right now, probably what happens is it comes in and the sales manager looks at it. I really like the CRM. Well, why wouldn't you bring in into the vet the solution, the sales manager, service manager, because it might have a service component to it, the office manager I would want to have in it, so that based on what it can do for the office, that type of thing, and really have them as a group come up with, well, is this the right one, as opposed to, well, sales made the decision, now we're all stuck with that decision. Okay, so again, cross-functional teams work. We had a situation where we had fist fights at the side counter, and literally fist fights, because the technicians weren't getting their parts fast enough, and there was those lazy parts guys, yada, yada, yada. And so what we did is we got a cross-functional team together of the technicians, parts guys, also my service writers, sat everybody down in a meeting and said, okay, you guys are going to solve this problem. And it took about an hour and a half. They came out with the solution, with a process that they put in place that basically identified where the issues were. We got those issues straightened out, and we never had another fight at the side counter. And actually, the techs were getting their parts much quicker than they ever got them. So I didn't solve it; they solved it. Okay? So they solve problems using cross-functional teams. So you also want to use your DMS as a team member. So one of the things that I talked about earlier, were KPIs, or the performance indicators. So if you set or a CPI, critical performance indicator, if you set something up like I'm going to track my effective labor rates, I'm going to track this, I'm going to track that. You want to use the team should be using the DMS as part of its member of the team to actually help track all that stuff when you set up your KPIs. Okay, so even though it's a piece of technology, it should be considered as part of the team. Okay? And then back to Daniel Pink for a second, and kind of in closing, the 3 primary human motivators are autonomy. So autonomy is giving people the ability to be empowered with their job. Well, what does that mean? Well, for instance, let's take Sarah. Sarah's a service writer, and Sarah goes off, and Mrs. Jones comes up and has an issue, and Sarah says to her, Mrs. Jones, I'll tell you what, that the oil change we're going to charge you for, we're going to take care of that, and we're going to take care of this part of the bill for you. Sarah didn't have to go talk to the service manager about it. Sarah didn't have to get the dealer to sign off on it. Sarah was empowered to make the customer happy. Okay, now a lot of dealers will say, well, yeah, but they're going to give the store away. They're not going to give the store away. You could set that up. They're going to just want to make the customer happy. So that gives them autonomy over not only how they do their job. Okay. Also, mastery is I love what I do. I'm incredibly good at it, and they want to learn more about their job. So it's the training and such. And purpose is, why do I come in every day? Is this just a job, or is it something better than that? And to get it so that people believe that it's something better than that goes back to what I said earlier. If you care about them, they will care about you. If you care about them and you communicate with them where the company is going, why you're taking the company there, what you're going to do to get there, and that you want them as part of it, and you care about them, they will do what you need them to do to get you there. That will be their purpose. And as I said, read Daniel Pink Drive. Another good person to go off and get on YouTube and watch is a gentleman named Simon Sinek, S-I-N-E-K. He does some great TED Talks on team building, and also on understanding why you're in business and why you do what you do. And thank you very much.
Great, thank you, Mike. We'll take a few minutes and do a Q&A session. Remember to send in those questions through the questions tab on your GoToWebinar platform. We do have some coming in. What kind of outside work functions do you suggest?
Okay, so one of the, having been at the dealership, one of the easiest ones for a dealership would be like a cookout. Like, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to have lunch at the dealership. You could do one in the parking lot. And I would do this, and this is not just for the, a lot of dealerships have cookouts for the, we cook them hot dogs for customers come in. I'm talking about the whole dealership's going to eat. You might cater it. You might have, in fact, the best thing would be if the dealer were out there actually cooking the food and handing it out to the employees as they come up. So you could do hamburgers, hot dogs, that type of thing. Another great thing that we do here is we do a thing called Pauhana. Okay? And Pauhana is Hawaiian for the time after work. And what that is we go off to a local distillery or bar or whatever you want to call it, and we'll rope off a section, and all our people will show up, and the company will buy drinks and food, and just like kind of a happy hour just for the company. Okay, and lots of people come, and everybody again go back to the socialization, those types of things.
Great. Here's another one. I set up team get-togethers once quarterly outside of the office. Is this enough?
I would say once, if it's outside the office, once quarterly is probably fine. I think as long as you're meeting with your team, for instance, all my managers meet with their teams minimum once a week, and I meet with the senior management team once a week. So if you're meeting, let's say even monthly with your team, and then over the 3 months, once is outside and, doing something outside, yeah, that's great.
Okay. Is it considered intrusive to compel people to attend work functions on their free time?
We don't do that, and I wouldn't do that. It's all voluntarily, you hope that people will show up. Okay. I would not, there's no work function I would ever say that an after hours function outside of work that I would say that people have to attend. I mean, you would hope that, they enjoy their work, they enjoy the people they work with, and they want to see them. Now, I know it's a lot of hours in a dealership, and it's tough to say, well, I work with them all day, but, it does work if you can get people to come.
Okay. What do you recommend as a start to a reward system?
So here's an easy thing to start a reward system that'll cost you nothing other than emotional equity. So if I'm the dealer or if I'm the service manager, and let's say we go back to our service writer, Sarah, and back to also what I talked about, the now that reward. And rewards can take a lot of different, can be a lot of different things. So I got Sarah, and I just got an email, or I got a call from Mrs. Jones, who said, I got to tell you, I was in last week, and Sarah, your service writer, she did a fabulous job, yada, yada. She let me know when the car was ready. She, in fact, called me, said it wasn't going to be ready yet, and please don't come over until whatever. At that point, you hang up the phone, you go out to the service lane, you put your arm around Sarah, and you say, in the loudest voice you can, Sarah, I just got to tell you, I just got a call from Mrs. Jones. You did a fabulous job. I really appreciate everything that you're doing, and really just keep up the good work, because you understand what we're about keeping our customers happy. And they shake her hand and then walk away. Didn't cost you a dime. The person, it's as if you just gave the person $100 bill. In fact, even better, because all of her peers are standing there, maybe even some customers, and people will be looking, going, boy, this is the type of company we really want to work for, that really appreciates what the people do. That's the way you even started, is just attaboys and attagirls. Okay? And then from there, you could take it to, if you had spend a little bit of money and go out and get gift cards. Maybe even if you bought, as much as I hate Starbucks cards, and gave them to people when they catch them doing good things. Again, back to the now that reward. Now that you did this great thing, let me give you this. Much, much more impactful than, well, if you really get 5 customers that are happy, I'm going to give you a $100 bonus. Okay.
Great. Well, Mike, thank you so much. That's all the time we have. Unless you have anything else, that will conclude our webinar.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mike, and thanks, AutoMate. Have a good one, everyone. Thanks.
Yeah, bye.